Her daughter-in-law's card declined, twice, right in front of their business investors. Across town, Evelyn, the mother-in-law she once mocked, watched silently on a hidden security feed. She'd just frozen the joint account they all forgot she still owned. The same account used to buy $7,000 handbags and fake sympathy. "You asked if I'd showered," Evelyn whispered. "I cleaned up your future instead." "All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from?" She wrinkled her nose like I was filth. I smiled, but something in me snapped. The laughter at the table was the kind that fills rooms, but not hearts. Frosted windows glowed from string lights outside, casting flickers of red and gold onto white linen and polished wine glasses. Evelyn sat at the far end of the holiday brunch, her hands neatly folded, a gentle, practiced smile resting on her lips. Tasha, poised like a magazine hostess, leaned over the table with her ever-perfect manicure wrapped around a mimosa flute. She scrunched her nose. "Mom," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear but soft enough to feign innocence. "Did you forget to shower again this morning?" The laughter paused. Just a second. But long enough. Evelyn blinked, her fork frozen mid-air. Darren shifted in his seat but didn't look up. Across from her, Tasha's friends, young, shiny, overdressed, exchanged glances. One of them giggled awkwardly, then reached for the cranberry scones. "I read somewhere," Tasha added, pouring herself more champagne, "that older people stop noticing their own body odor. Something about sensory decline?" Her tone was sugar-sweet, her eyes sharp as razors. Evelyn smiled, but inside, something twisted, tight and ancient, like a rope pulled too many times. She said nothing, just nodded slightly and took a sip of lukewarm tea. Let them think she didn't hear. In the powder room, moments later, Evelyn stood alone before the mirror. The reflection staring back wasn't frail, but it wasn't unfamiliar either. Loose curls tucked back, maroon sweater buttoned just right, pearl earrings Darren gave her 15 years ago. Her fingers hovered near her collarbone, where the faintest stain of perfume lingered. Lavender and something softer. She had showered. She always did. This wasn't about scent. It never had been. She closed her eyes and breathed in deep, scents of cinnamon rolls, pine-scented candles, and the faint acidic tang of Tasha's cruelty. In her silence, a memory surfaced uninvited. Years ago, a younger Darren had come to her in tears, holding paperwork in trembling hands, his business barely afloat, the mortgage on the edge of default. Evelyn had taken off her wedding bangles that day, real gold, a gift from her late husband, and sold them to cover the down payment. She had smiled then, too. Let the kids have a chance, she'd told herself. Later that evening, while the house buzzed with carols and post-brunch days, Evelyn sat quietly in the guest room. The glow of her tablet screen cast blue shadows across her face. She wasn't tech-savvy, but she wasn't helpless either. Darren had once set up a joint account in both their names, back when they needed her credit history to secure the house. She'd forgotten about it, but her name was still there. Active, unremoved, dormant, but alive. She tapped in the old username, reset the password using her old email, still linked. Her fingers trembled not from age, but anticipation, and there it was. A balance, not staggering but not small. Enough. Receipts, transfers, card activity, all flowing like water, all in her name, just as much as theirs. A ding from downstairs. A text. Probably another brunch photo from Tasha's phone captioned "Holiday Bliss" or some curated lie for her followers. Evelyn didn't check. Instead, she leaned back slowly, absorbing the chill of the leather headboard behind her. Her lips curled into a soft smile, not kind, not cruel, just calm. She whispered into the stillness, almost too quiet for the room to catch. "Let's see who stinks now." She said I forgot how to bathe. I remembered every dime I gave. "Darren, I'm just saying, it might be time to talk to someone." Tasha's voice drifted through the cracked kitchen door like the scent of overcooked turkey, cloying and artificial. "She's been forgetful." She put a towel in the fridge yesterday. A deliberate pause, then softer, almost pitiful. I'm worried it could be dementia. Evelyn froze in the hallway, her slippers silent against the hardwood. Her eyes narrowed. She had not put a towel in the fridge. She'd folded it on the counter, then Tasha had barged in, waved a phone call in her face, and insisted she go rest. The towel had probably been shoved aside during one of Tasha's manic cleaning fits. Still, Evelyn said nothing. Silence had always been her sharpest blade. Inside the kitchen, Darren exhaled heavily. She's getting older, Tash. I mean, maybe she's just old. That's normal, right? His tone was flat, resigned, not angry, just absent. Evelyn felt her stomach twist, not from their words, but from the numb familiarity of hearing them talk around her like she was furniture with a heartbeat. She turned and stepped back toward the guest room. Her breath was steady, her back straighter than usual. Once inside, she locked the door with an almost ceremonial calm. She opened the tablet again. The joint account hadn't changed much since last night. No alerts, no new purchases. But as she scrolled through linked emails and card activities, one email subject caught her eye. Thank you for booking with Haven Blue Resorts. Your Maldives escape awaits. She tapped the message. Tasha's name, Tasha's email. But the card used? It was tied to that account. Evelyn didn't blink. Instead, she got up, opened the closet, and pulled down the worn leather file box she'd brought with her when she moved in. It hadn't been touched in years. Inside, neatly organized in labeled folders, were documents Darren had long forgotten. The original business loan she had co-signed, the mortgage papers she had helped approve, tax returns from when she bailed them out, and tucked beneath those, the joint account agreement. Her name, her rights, her leverage. The next morning, while the rest of the house slept off their sugar highs and social fatigue, Evelyn stepped into the chilled morning air. A gray scarf hugged her neck, her breath visible in soft white clouds. She didn't call a cab. She walked. 15 blocks later, she entered a dull beige building downtown. No music, no scent of cinnamon or fake holiday cheer, just clean, sterile air and quiet professionalism. I'd like to rent a safe deposit box, she told the woman behind the counter, who smiled politely and led her through the steps. One by one, Evelyn slid the most important documents inside. When the lid clicked shut, she exhaled deeply. It wasn't revenge, not yet. It was insurance. Back home that afternoon, Evelyn moved about the house like nothing had changed. She made tea. She watered the plants. She let Tasha gossip on the phone in the living room about Mom's declining awareness and how she was doing everything she could. Evelyn said nothing, but she watched everything. Later that night, long after everyone had gone to bed, Evelyn crept into the hallway. The blue light of the living room reflected faintly on the wall. Someone had left a device screen open. She approached slowly. It was Tasha's laptop, carelessly left on the armrest. Evelyn leaned over. The browser showed the bank login page. In the username field, her name was already filled in. Tasha had clicked "Forgot password." Her hand tightened around the armrest. A low hum buzzed in her ears. Not fear, not quite anger. Something colder, something alert. Evelyn stepped back, silent. But her eyes were lit with something dangerous. They started locking the bathroom. I unlocked their past mistakes. The first time it happened, Evelyn thought it was a glitch. She tried the bathroom door before sunrise, her slippers soft on the cold hallway tile. But the knob wouldn't turn. A soft red light blinked above the handle. Locked. Not just locked. Digitally locked. She waited a few seconds, pressed the handle again, then knocked gently. No one answered. Later that morning, Tasha breezed past with a mug in hand, her robe cinched too tightly, her eyes too bright. "Oh, we upgraded to smart locks," she said, not stopping. "Helps with scheduling. Water bills were getting high." Evelyn didn't respond. She just turned and looked out the window, but something in her shifted, like a key finally clicking into place. They weren't just humiliating her anymore, they were monitoring her. Over the next 2 days, subtle changes unfolded like frost creeping across a window pane. The guest room's thermostat began fluctuating, too cold in the morning, sweltering by afternoon. Her favorite chair in the sunroom was moved for space. Darren's calendar, left open on the kitchen island, had a line scribbled in, "Mom's shower, 7:30 to 8 only." Evelyn's breath slowed. Her movements became deliberate, silent, measured. They thought they were clever, but they were arrogant, and arrogance was noisy. She retrieved an old phone from her drawer, one Darren had gifted her years ago and later replaced. It still worked, still had a decent camera. She charged it at night, hid it under the mattress by day. The next time Tasha adjusted the hallway thermostat, Evelyn filmed it from the cracked door. The next time the bathroom door blinked red, she snapped a photo of the app on Tasha's phone as it flashed open. Every comment, every dismissive shrug, every forced laugh Darren offered when Tasha joked about keeping the old lady on a timer, she recorded it all. On the third night, Evelyn made a call she hadn't made in years. "Margot?" she whispered into the receiver. A pause, then a voice, older, raspier, but unmistakably sharp. "Evie? I thought you were still breathing," Evelyn said with a small smile. "I need a favor." Margot Ramirez had once worked with Evelyn in accounting. Now she was something much higher up, a compliance officer for a regional bank chain, the kind of woman who noticed patterns, flags, and breaches most people missed. She listened as Evelyn laid out only what needed to be said. No signatures removed, no POA changes, just observation for now. "And you're sure it's the joint account?" Margot asked. "Positive. She's getting bold." "I'll pull what I can under internal review," Margot said. "But if she's funneling or refinancing through it, you'll need legal leverage." "I'm working on it." The next day, Evelyn visited a small print shop 3 neighborhoods over, somewhere she could pay in cash. She printed a single document, a pre-filled permission slip that would allow her, as a joint owner, to request a temporary freeze of outgoing transactions. Not execute it, not file it, just have it ready. She folded the paper into her coat pocket, where the fabric was stitched slightly open, a personal secret pocket she'd sewn in years ago, back when she still fixed Darren's collars and believed kindness would always come back around. Back home, the house hummed with artificial calm. The scent of eucalyptus oil drifted from a new diffuser. "It helps reduce agitation," Tasha had said with a pointed look. Evelyn smiled. Her agitation had never been cleaner. Sharper. That evening, her phone buzzed with a new voicemail from Margot. "Evie, it's worse than you thought," she said, voice tight. "There's chatter. She's not just planning purchases, she's moving toward a refinance of the property. Your name's still attached on some docs. If she closes that before you act." The message trailed into static. Evelyn didn't flinch. She simply opened the bottom drawer of her dresser, pulled out a thin leather folder, and slid the freeze authorization form inside. But her hands, they moved faster now. Margot's final message buzzed again. "You may want to move faster. She's refinancing something too. They wore labels bought with my legacy." The bag was unmistakable. Structured leather, pale cream, gold hardware that caught every sliver of morning light. Hermes. Real. Loud. Expensive. And swinging arrogantly from Tasha's wrist like it belonged there. Evelyn stood near the glass doors of the boutique, holding a quiet paper cup of tea in her hand, the steam whispering against her cheek. Tasha laughed in the distance, head thrown back, sunglasses perched high on her nose like a queen surveying her court. Darren trailed behind her, distracted on his phone. "Do you like it?" Tasha purred, spinning to face Evelyn with a mock innocent smile. "It's vintage, impossible to find in that color. But, you know, some things just belong to certain women." Evelyn blinked slowly, her fingers tightened just slightly around the cup, the heat grounding her. She remembered a very different bag, smaller, soft brown leather, the one she pawned 12 years ago, her wedding necklace folded inside, to wire $10,000 to Darren before his business dissolved beneath him. She hadn't told anyone, not even her sister. She remembered how the pawn shop had smelled, like rusted metal, lemon cleaner, and desperation. The boutique smelled better, too clean, almost sterile. Expensive silence wrapped the displays like museum glass. Evelyn wandered to the basics section, muted cardigans, tailored coats. She didn't linger near the statement racks. "I don't think they carry your size," Tasha said in passing, not even looking at her. "But maybe you can grab something cozy. They have a clearance hoodie near the back." Darren didn't even look up. Evelyn smiled thinly. She walked straight to the back and picked up the hoodie. Dark navy, plain, unbranded. She held it up to the mirror for a moment, then turned and made her way to the counter. "I'll take this," she said. Her voice was steady, and as the cashier folded it carefully into the paper bag, Evelyn reached into her own purse, pulled out the folded legal authorization from her drawer, the one Margot had warned her to be ready with, and slid it between the hoodie's folds. No one noticed. Everyone was too busy watching Tasha pose in front of the mirror, pretending she didn't know the saleswoman was filming her for the store's Instagram. Outside the boutique, the air had turned crisp. Evelyn let the cold cut through her. It kept her awake, sharp. Tasha held out her bag for Darren to admire. "Can you believe it?" she said, twirling slightly on the sidewalk. "Only $7,000. That's practically a steal." Darren grunted in reply. He was scrolling through something, probably stocks, or golf clubs, or himself. Evelyn said nothing, but her fingers slid her phone from her pocket. A habit now, one tap, one swipe. Bank notification, $7,014.35, jewelry district purchase, card ending in 91. Her eyes didn't widen. Her breath didn't hitch. She just stood still, letting the sidewalk bustle around her like river current past stone. Tasha had just stolen from her. In real time. While Evelyn watched her do it wearing the proof on her shoulder. Later, as Darren pulled the car into the driveway and Tasha started uploading her haul video, Evelyn walked straight to her room, closed the door, and sat at the edge of her bed. She reached into the hoodie bag and pulled the papers out again. They were still crisp, still waiting. She stared at the top line, account holder authorization to freeze joint asset access. Her name sat right next to Darren's, equal, legal, forgotten by them, but not by her. Her phone buzzed again. Second notification. Same card, same account. $7,000 exactly. Online purchase, luxury diamond set. Confirmed. Evelyn exhaled once. The freeze would come soon. She said her diamonds were real. So was the freeze notice. The diamonds caught light like little knives, each stone sharp, loud, and unapologetically real. Tasha posed in front of the full-length mirror, her phone held high, ring light set to glamour glow. The necklace gleamed across her collarbones, catching every shimmer the camera could offer. "Real diamonds for a real woman," she purred into the lens. "You either sparkle or you disappear." Evelyn sat 3 rooms away, her laptop open, cursor hovering over a single button. Execute freeze authorization. Her hand didn't shake, not when she tapped it, not when the screen refreshed with a bold green banner. Account access temporarily suspended, all linked cards disabled. No confirmation emails sent, no alerts to other users, just quiet action, silent thunder. An hour later, Tasha stepped into the high-end restaurant lobby like she was late for a photo shoot. Her dress was crimson silk, slit high, heels sharp as her tongue. Darren followed behind, checking his phone for the 5th time. They were meeting clients, potential investors for Darren's side venture. Tasha insisted on dinner at Celle du Ciel, a rooftop bistro overlooking the city skyline where the cheapest appetizer cost more than Evelyn's monthly grocery run. At the hostess stand, Tasha flashed her diamond smile and handed over the card. "Private balcony table," she said, confident. "Reservation under Kingsley." The hostess returned moments later, apologetic. "Ma'am, the card didn't go through. Would you like to try another?" Tasha laughed like it was a joke. "Try it again. It's a platinum." The hostess tried, twice, then held it out delicately. "I'm sorry, it's declined." 4 security cameras inside Celle du Ciel streamed directly to Evelyn's tablet. She had installed the feed last month when Darren mentioned the new security contractor, someone Evelyn once mentored, now running his own company. Small favors, quiet rewards. Now on the screen, Evelyn watched Tasha's face twist, not in embarrassment, but in disbelief, the kind that belongs to people who've never been told no. Darren leaned over the table, lips tight. "What's going on?" Tasha hissed something. He pulled out his card. That too was linked. Declined. Tasha's laugh cracked. The clients at the neighboring table exchanged glances. One of them shifted his chair away, just slightly, but tellingly. From her armchair at home, Evelyn sipped mint tea and turned the volume up one notch. Darren called her 10 minutes later. She let it ring. He called again, then texted, "Darren, Mom? Something's wrong. Are you okay? Call me." Darren, "Why are our accounts frozen? Did the bank make a mistake?" Darren, "Call me." Evelyn let the messages pile like snowdrifts. She reached instead for the beige envelope on her desk, her pension transfer documents. She slid the forms into a new folder marked Private Trust, Evelyn J. Kingsley, then tapped her attorney's number on speed dial. "Yes," she said calmly. "Move everything. Today. Full withdrawal to the secondary account." She didn't say why. She didn't have to. The front door slammed an hour later. Evelyn didn't flinch. Footsteps pounded through the hallway like a warning shot, fast, uneven, filled with heat. Then a fist struck her door 3 times hard. "What did you do?" Darren's voice was loud, cracked, no longer calm, no longer indifferent. Evelyn slowly closed the leather folder in front of her and stood. She walked to the door and paused. Outside, his breathing was ragged. She imagined his red face, his knuckles pale, his eyes darting, not in anger, but in fear. Tasha must have been unraveling in front of him now. No script, no Instagram-ready version of her panic. Evelyn placed her hand on the door but didn't open it. "Mom!" he snapped again. "This is serious. You can't just— What did you do?" She leaned in, almost close enough to whisper through the wood. Evelyn's voice, low and clear, came through the door like a blade. "I did what you asked me to years ago. I saved us. You just didn't know who I was saving. Us from. They said I wasn't presentable. I dressed up for the eviction." Evelyn stood in front of the hallway mirror, brushing out the soft waves in her graying hair. Her blouse was pressed, her slacks neat, shoes polished. A silk scarf, dusty rose, barely worn, was knotted loosely around her neck. The look was understated, clean. Darren's words from last week echoed in her ears like a sour note. She doesn't really present herself anymore. And Tasha, not missing the cue, had added with her plastic laugh, "I mean, God bless her, but sometimes she looks like she's wandering through life, like she's waiting to be placed somewhere." Evelyn had smiled. Software vacant, let them think she was drifting. But today, she wasn't wandering. Today, she was walking toward freedom. The real estate agent's heels clicked beside her as they stepped into the building lobby. Cream marble floors, gold elevator doors, faint scent of bergamot in the air. Everything clean, elegant, new. Evelyn's gaze wandered toward the concierge desk, where a young woman smiled and offered a quiet nod. "This is our penthouse-level model," the agent said. 2 bedrooms, custom closets, floor-to-ceiling windows. Of course, everything can be placed under a trust, as you requested. Evelyn nodded. She let her fingers skim the granite kitchen counter, cool beneath her hand. No dishes stacked, no notes taped to the fridge telling her to check in, no artificial eucalyptus fog in the vents, just clean space. Silence she owned. She didn't ask about the amenities, didn't need to know the wine fridge size or the linen closet dimensions. What mattered was the security, the independence, and the view. From the balcony, the city sprawled beneath her like a second chance. "I'll take it," she said. Back at home, Darren and Tasha were in the living room, speaking in clipped tones. Evelyn stepped in quietly. Neither noticed. "The bank still won't tell me anything," Darren muttered, pacing. "And now I'm getting flagged calls about the refinance." Tasha's arms were crossed, her tone brittle. "You think I did this? Maybe your mother doesn't even know what she's touching. She can barely keep her PIN straight." Evelyn slipped past them with a yawn. "Think I'll lie down. All these bank calls have my head spinning." Tasha didn't even look at her. "Great idea. Nap it off." Evelyn climbed the stairs with practiced slowness, pausing at the top just long enough to hear Darren sigh like a man exhausted by women. Then she moved toward her room and shut the door. On her desk sat an envelope labeled Lexman and Shaw, Private Investigations. She'd hired them quietly last week, not to spy, to verify. Paper trails, assets, shell accounts. Tasha had always lived above her means, and Evelyn suspected the surface wasn't even close to the rot underneath. Inside the folder were preliminary findings. 2 shell LLCs registered in Tasha's maiden name, a boutique in a neighboring county, paid for in cash, multiple bank transfers to an unlinked savings account under S. Langford. S. Langford wasn't Tasha's name. Evelyn flipped to the final page where the investigator had written, "Unconfirmed, potential secondary relationship, further surveillance underway." That evening, Tasha barged into Evelyn's room without knocking. "I know what you're doing," she snapped. "You're sabotaging us. You're punishing Darren for something he didn't even do." Evelyn blinked slowly. "I'm not punishing anyone, dear. I just like to keep my things organized. You froze everything. Now you're playing victim while we try to clean up your mess." Evelyn stood, calm, composed. "If you're so sure it's my mess, you should be relieved I'm looking for a new place. Might make things easier around here." Tasha went still. For the first time, she seemed thrown. "What do you mean?" "I took a tour today," Evelyn said. "Somewhere with space, sunlight, silence." She tilted her head. "You know, things I thought this house had when I helped you buy it." Tasha didn't speak. Her jaw twitched. Evelyn smiled faintly and walked past her. Later that night, Evelyn's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. No text, just 3 photographs. Tasha, standing outside a law office. Tasha, entering alone. Tasha, sitting across from a woman in a blazer, visibly upset. The nameplate behind the woman read, "Divorce and Family Law." Evelyn stared at the images, one hand pressed lightly to her chest. Tasha wasn't just cracking. She was unraveling. She wept for sympathy. I logged in instead. The sound of Tasha crying wasn't unfamiliar, but it was always performative. Too loud, too sudden, always staged near an open door or hallway, like a bad actress milking a final monologue. This time, Evelyn heard her from the staircase landing. Tasha's voice broke just enough to be believable to someone who didn't know her. "I just feel so alone," she sobbed into the phone. "No one sees how hard I work to keep this family standing. I'm the only one doing anything. Darren's distracted, and she's everywhere and nowhere. I can't keep living like this." There was a pause. Then the low, syrupy murmur of whoever was on the other end. Likely the therapist Darren insisted they try months ago, or perhaps one of Tasha's backup confidants, always on speed dial for emotional emergencies. Evelyn stepped back into the shadows of the hallway and waited. She didn't interrupt. She listened. Then, when Tasha's door clicked shut and the crying muted, she made her way to the study. The room still smelled faintly of vanilla candles and toner ink. Tasha always left the window cracked just enough to keep the air fresh and balanced. Evelyn moved quietly, deliberately, opening drawers she already knew held nothing incriminating, but the desk's top drawer had a portable hard drive. Next to it, a sticky note. Dropbox. Tasha K. Private password. Langford plus R29 Langford. The same alias her investigator had flagged. Evelyn smiled, briefly, coldly, and sat down at the desk, plugging in her old tablet. It took 2 tries to log in. On the third, the screen opened like a wound. Inside, dozens of folders, receipts, invoices, scanned tax forms. At first glance, nothing unusual, but Evelyn dug deeper, opening folder after folder, tracking the file names not by content, but by tone. One folder was labeled, "Exit Strategy, Final." Another, "Mill Buyout Plan, Confidential." Her pulse slowed. She opened the second file. A typed outline filled the screen. It read like a corporate takeover plan. Phase 1, encourage early signs of dementia. Phase 2, suggest transition into a care facility. Phase 3, isolate from joint accounts, create financial fog. Phase 4, final buyout terms for property and business name. Goal, full ownership. No legal liability post-transfer. Evelyn scrolled further, her eyes catching lines that felt like acid. She's fading. He just needs the right push. Once I have equity, we don't need her at all." She took a breath so quiet it barely disturbed the dust, then opened the next file. Home Equity Doc Draft Version 3.pdf. It wasn't just a plan. It was already in motion. Fake signatures, inflated estimates, a full refinance package with Darren's name and hers forged. Evelyn printed everything, quietly, one sheet at a time, each page sliding out like a confession. She slid the files into a plain folder, no labels, no markings. Then she opened the voice memo app on her tablet and replayed Darren's latest message. "You've ruined everything." No mom, no explanation, just 6 words spoken in a voice that didn't sound shocked, just bitter. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then, with deliberate care, she connected her phone to Wi-Fi, opened a secure browser, and typed in an email address that wasn't hers. One Margot had given her, a dead drop address. In the subject line, "Whistleblower tip, Kingsley LLC internal theft attached, the entire folder." Recipient, Darren's co-founder and silent investor, Alan McCormick. She didn't sign the message, didn't leave a trace, just hit send and watched the screen go dark. The house was quiet again. Tasha's crocodile tears had dried. Darren hadn't come home. Evelyn stood at the window, watching the porch light flicker. Somewhere, her son was still blaming her. And somewhere closer, his wife was trying to replace her before she'd even left. But Evelyn wasn't gone. She was waking up. 1 minute later, Evelyn's burner phone buzzed with a notification. Unknown number. One message. "I got it. This changes everything. AM. Every shoe she bought stepped on my pride." Evelyn stood at the edge of her closet, eyes scanning the neat row of sensible shoes she'd worn over the years, low-heeled, scuffed, practical. Each pair held memories, a bank opening, Darren's graduation, her late husband's funeral. Nothing flashy, nothing to flaunt. Downstairs, she could hear the sharp clip of Tasha's new designer stilettos hitting the hardwood floor, an unnecessary performance with every step. Each click was a reminder, not just of arrogance, but of theft. Every pair of shoes in Tasha's closet, every handbag, every layered silk blouse, they were paid for with fraud. Lies sewn between receipts, tucked under fake signatures. Tasha had built a runway from Evelyn's trust, and Darren had walked it blindly. Evelyn turned away from the closet and picked up the file folder from her desk. The pages inside weren't just proof. They were a map. And she knew exactly who needed to see it next. "I'm not surprised," her lawyer said quietly, scanning the forged documents Evelyn had slipped across the table. "But I didn't expect it to be this bold." They sat in a quiet office downtown, the lights dimmed to afternoon warmth. The scent of old paper and brewed coffee floated in the air. "She's not cautious. She's just convinced no one will stop her," Evelyn said, her voice low. The lawyer tapped a pen against the page. "You're saying this loan, Darren, submitted for refinancing, this document has been altered?" Evelyn nodded. "Compare it to the originals in the safe deposit box. You'll see what she changed. Assets inflated, debt hidden, my name removed from the liability line, without my consent." The lawyer exhaled, slow. "And you want this exposed?" "No," Evelyn said, standing. "I want it corrected. Quietly." 2 days later, a call came through from Alan McCormick, Darren's co-founder. "Mrs. Kingsley," he said, measured but respectful. "I don't know what you uncovered or how you got it, but it's real, and it's serious." "I assumed it might be," Evelyn said, sipping her tea. "We're launching an internal audit. If Darren knew about any of this, I'll find out. If he didn't, then it means he's lost control." "I think he lost that a long time ago," Evelyn replied. There was a pause. Then Alan's voice dropped lower. "She's been trying to position herself into the company's financials through Darren's side of the books. We found inconsistencies tied to 2 fake vendor accounts. She used them to reroute consulting fees." "How much?" "Enough to fund a year's worth of whatever's in her closet." That evening, Evelyn placed an envelope into the drop box at the rear door of a small local newsroom. She didn't enter. She didn't speak to anyone. Inside the envelope, a USB stick with every incriminating document, a short typed letter signed, "Concerned Citizen, Daughter, Widow." She didn't expect a headline, not right away, but it would circulate, quietly, then louder, then unignorable. Back home, Evelyn unlocked her safe once more and pulled out a fresh folder. Her amended will. Tasha's name had been removed entirely. Darren's share was to be held in trust, subject to quarterly review. The majority would now go to foundations for elder justice and women's financial literacy. The pen she used was old, heavy, a gift from her husband long ago. She signed slowly, each letter crisp and exact. She had no more illusions to spare. The next morning, as she buttered toast and watered the small basil plant on the windowsill, her phone buzzed with an alert. Unauthorized attempt, pension access blocked location, unknown device, flagged. Evelyn stared at the screen. She didn't panic. She didn't gasp. She walked to her drawer, pulled out the second burner phone, and typed a short message to Margot. It started. As she sent the message, her main phone buzzed again. This time it was a voice memo from Tasha. Only 2 words. "You'll regret this." She stole my reflection. I polished hers for public view. The mirror above Evelyn's vanity was gone. She'd taken it down herself. Not because she couldn't stand her reflection, but because she finally refused to define herself by it. For 10 days the glass remained tucked behind the armoire, untouched. Her mornings became quieter. No rouge, no mascara, no inspections of wrinkles or judgment of gray roots. She didn't need to see her face to know who she was anymore. The woman who stared back at her for years, tired, erased, unsure, was gone. And the silence that replaced her? It was powerful. She had gone completely no contact. No calls, no texts, no answers. Darren knocked twice the first day, then stopped. Tasha left 3 voicemails by day 3, 1 pleading, 1 passive-aggressive, 1 threatening. Evelyn listened to none of them. Instead, she made tea in silence. She read old letters from her late husband. She played Chopin softly on a Bluetooth speaker as she watched clouds roll past the condo's massive windows. The view from her new home was serene, skyscrapers in the distance, gentle rain sweeping over rooftops like silk. By day 5, something strange began to happen. Whispers. Evelyn didn't hear them directly, but she knew the shape of a rumor by how it traveled. A neighbor from the old block emailed her, saying, "Are you okay? People are saying strange things. There's talk that Tasha might be under investigation?" Another message arrived, this one from a former colleague of Darren's. "You didn't hear it from me, but someone's asking questions about your name on the house deed. Are you involved in something? Just checking in." Evelyn smiled softly. It had started. Not fire and fury. Not loud revenge, but erosion. Slow, patient, undeniable. Like water hollowing out stone. By day 7, Evelyn found herself standing outside a sandstone building tucked between 2 courthouses. The sign read, "Cora House Foundation, Women's Legal and Financial Resource Center." Inside, the scent of lavender and fresh ink lingered. The waiting room was small, clean. A receptionist with kind eyes guided her to a back office, where a younger woman with a tight bun and smart blazer offered a seat and said, "You're the anonymous donor?" Evelyn nodded. "You have the paperwork?" "Right here," the woman replied, placing a set of documents on the desk. Evelyn read each line, carefully. This wasn't charity, it was intention. The condo, purchased under a blind trust, was to be transferred, upon her death, into full ownership by the foundation. It would become transitional housing for elderly women displaced by financial abuse. It was the final line Evelyn signed that struck her. Donor reserves no memorial naming rights or plaque. This act is to be received without gratitude, only with continued purpose. She signed. "Would you like to share your name for our records?" the young woman asked. Evelyn paused, then shook her head. "Just call me a neighbor." That evening, Evelyn walked along the riverside trail as dusk rolled in. A gentle wind rustled the leaves. She didn't check her phone, but inside Tasha's world, panic was blooming. Someone had sent questions to her office's HR department, an inquiry into possible elder abuse. The wording was clinical, but the impact was immediate. Co-workers began whispering. Her supervisor asked her to step out of a team meeting. "Just protocol," he said, not looking her in the eye. Tasha's voice cracked. "This is harassment. She's turning people against me." The HR rep said calmly, "It's an inquiry, not an accusation. But you should be aware. It's being documented." By day 10, the house phone rang. This time, it wasn't Evelyn calling. It was the law firm of Harwin and Dade, specialists in civil elder protection. A crisp female voice delivered the message Tasha never expected. "Per the legal representation of Evelyn J. Kingsley, this is a formal cease and desist. Any further attempts to access her accounts, manipulate her legal records, or slander her publicly will result in immediate litigation." Tasha's mouth fell open. Her hands trembled as she dropped the receiver. Darren stepped into the doorway. "What now?" he asked. She didn't answer. That night, Tasha logged into her email and found the subject line that sent a chill down her spine. Formal notice. Pending investigation of financial coercion. Attached, the very same receipts she once buried in a private folder. "They invited me to a family dinner. I brought dessert and the truth." The invitation arrived with the same sugar-slick tone Tasha always used when trying to manipulate guilt into civility. A text message, nothing more. "Family dinner this Sunday. It would mean a lot if you joined. Let's move forward." Evelyn stared at the words for a long time, her thumb hovering above the screen. No apology, no accountability, just an offering wrapped in the illusion of peace. She replied with a single word, "Accepted." Then she opened the locked drawer of her writing desk and pulled out a small digital recorder, a black envelope, and a sealed manila folder. She would not arrive empty-handed. The restaurant was Tasha's idea, of course, a trendy fusion place downtown where every dish looked like art and every corner was lit for Instagram. Evelyn stepped inside wearing a charcoal gray wool coat and soft leather gloves. Nothing extravagant, just timeless. The hostess guided her to the private dining room. Warm lighting, linen tablecloths, too many forks. Darren stood and offered an awkward half-smile. Tasha was already sipping wine. "Glad you came," Darren said as she sat. "Let's just have a normal night." Tasha nodded. A fresh start. Evelyn returned their smiles with the ease of someone who already knew how the night would end. They made it through appetizers. Barely. Small talk, hollow laughter, Tasha's thinly veiled jabs. "I'm just glad we're all being adults about things now," she said, slicing her salmon, "not letting little misunderstandings spiral." Evelyn unfolded her napkin with care. "You're right. It's time for clarity." Then she reached into her handbag and placed a small speaker on the table. "What's that?" Darren asked. Evelyn pressed play. Tasha's voice filled the room, recorded weeks ago, laced with venom. Older people stop noticing their odor. It's almost sad. Like watching something rot in slow motion. "She's already halfway gone. We're just making things official. Once I get Darren to sign the final equity shift, she won't even know what hit her." The clink of silverware stopped. The air in the room turned to stone. Tasha's wine glass trembled in her hand. You recorded me?" "I documented the truth," Evelyn said. Darren stared, stunned. "Tasha, what is this?" Tasha looked at him, eyes wild. "She's twisting things. That's completely out of context." Evelyn pulled a folder from her coat, opened it, slid the contents across the table. Bank statements, withdrawal logs, cross-referenced screenshots, copies of forged signatures. "Context," Evelyn said, "is when you know where every dollar comes from. Every lie. Every silence. Every betrayal." The folder sat between them like a wound. Darren picked up a page and went pale. "I didn't know about this," he muttered. "You used the business card. Without telling me?" Tasha leaned forward, panicked. "You said it didn't matter where the funds came from as long as it was legal. You told me to handle it." "I said we'd manage it," he snapped. "Not launder it." The argument unraveled fast, but Evelyn had already stood. She wasn't staying for dessert. As she walked toward the door, the server approached. "Leaving so soon, ma'am?" he asked. She smiled, passing him a slim black envelope. "Could you deliver this to the couple at the head of the table?" "Of course." Inside the envelope, formal notice of pending civil litigation filed by Harwin and Dade on behalf of Evelyn J. Kingsley. Outside, Evelyn stepped into the cool night air. The street shimmered with fresh rain. Her driver pulled up moments later, but she paused before getting in. Through the restaurant's glass window, she could see Darren slumped in his chair, Tasha frozen, white with rage. The waiter placed the envelope on the table, and then, a flicker. Inside the restaurant, the TV mounted above the bar changed to breaking news. A reporter stood on screen, wind in her hair, voice serious. Local businesswoman faces allegations of elder financial abuse, joint accounts and home equity schemes under review. The room behind Evelyn erupted into chaos. She didn't look back. Her phone vibrated, one new message from an unknown number. "Ms. Kingsley, we'd like to speak with you about an upcoming podcast episode on financial retaliation and silent resilience. You're exactly the voice we need." They said I was forgetful. I remembered every lock combination. The storage unit smelled of cold dust and old wood, a scent Evelyn hadn't breathed in since her husband died, back when she still thought everything built with sacrifice would be honored by loyalty. She ran her fingers along the metal edge of the shelf, brushing off a thin veil of time. There, tucked beneath a box of Christmas ornaments and a faded picnic blanket, was the fireproof safe she had nearly let disappear from memory. They called her forgetful, but Evelyn remembered the code, 4 digits, her wedding date. She turned the dial slowly. Click, pause, click. The final turn landed like the click of a trigger. The safe opened with a sigh. Inside lay the bones of her past wealth. Original stock certificates from a solar startup she'd backed in the 90s, the first purchase deed of a downtown commercial property, a notarized loan agreement between her and Darren for business expansion, dated 10 years ago. She exhaled, holding the papers like someone clutching proof of their own sanity. None of this was conjecture. It wasn't emotional, it was law. She took a photo of every page and emailed them to her attorney with a subject line as simple as it was final. Execute claim. 2 days later, Evelyn sat across from her lawyer, the papers spread across a polished wood table. "You know what this means," he said. "I can reclaim the building." "Yes, the one his office currently leases. You're still the majority title holder through the Shell Trust. That never changed." Evelyn stirred her tea. "I remember setting that up with Harold. He wanted something for Darren that couldn't be easily touched. He thought it would protect him from bad investors." The lawyer nodded. "Irony's a hell of a thing." Outside the office, the world moved like any other Tuesday. But Evelyn's Tuesday had the pulse of justice in it. She signed the claim form with precise strokes. Later that week, she met a commercial appraiser at the site. The building was modest. 3 stories, brick facade, an etched metal sign that read Kingsley and Company. Financial planning. Darren had replaced the interior, modernized it, but the foundation still belonged to her. She watched from across the street as the appraiser walked through the entrance, clipboard in hand. A few minutes later, a sleek black SUV pulled up fast, and Tasha stepped out in oversized sunglasses, hair thrown into a rushed bun. The moment she saw the man with the clipboard, her body stiffened. The appraiser greeted her politely. She snapped something back, gesturing wildly toward the building. Then she saw the cameras. 2 news vans parked across the street, coincidentally or not, had started rolling. Tasha tried to shield her face, but one of the reporters recognized her. "Ms. Langford, any comment on the allegations of elder fraud tied to your husband's accounts?" Tasha spun, her voice shrill. "I don't know anything about that. This is harassment." From the cafe window across the street, Evelyn sipped her coffee slowly, watching it all unfold. She didn't speak. She didn't blink. She simply placed her hand on the manila envelope beside her. Inside, documentation of all financial manipulation. The building's title, her next legal step. By evening, she had filed the motion. Petition to revoke air access and beneficiary rights. Tasha Kingsley Langford filed. Stamped. Received. There would be no more trust fund illusions, no fallback inheritances, no legacy hand-me-downs tied to Evelyn's name. Tasha would receive, "She blocked me online, but she couldn't block," on the headlines. When Evelyn's voice filled the podcast studio, it wasn't shaky, it wasn't bitter, it was composed, measured like someone who had counted every breath, every dollar, and every betrayal. She sat across from the host of The Unseen Ledger, a widely followed podcast about financial justice, advocacy, and overlooked power. The room was dim but warm, the microphone cool against her lips. She wore no jewelry, no makeup, just the coat of a woman who had nothing left to prove. "I didn't realize how invisible I had become," she said calmly, "until I heard someone talk about me like I'd already died." The host, Nora, leaned in. "And when did you know it wasn't just carelessness, but intentional harm?" Evelyn's fingers laced gently in her lap. "When she started logging my bathroom hours." There was a silence, not awkward, not empty, the kind that swallows a room when truth becomes too heavy to ignore. The episode dropped 2 days later. By the third hour, it had been streamed over 100,000 times. By midnight, it was trending on Twitter under the hashtag #ElderAccountable. Clips circulated, Evelyn's calm voice layered over photos of luxury items and financial documents. Social media lit up. Is this about that local finance guy's wife? Wait, is this the same woman who said elders forget to bathe on that influencer panel last year? Her Emil sounds sharper than half my professors. She's not crazy. She's exact. Tasha's page, once a curated feed of polished brunch photos, gym selfies, and hashtagged affirmations, turned toxic overnight. Under a recent post of her in a new velvet suit, comments flooded in. "Was this before or after you drained your mother-in-law's pension? Hope those heels came with an indictment. Your silence is louder than Evelyn's receipts." By morning, she had blocked hundreds, including Evelyn, but Evelyn didn't notice. She didn't even check. Her phone was filled with messages of a different kind, some angry, some grateful. One in particular stood out. A typed letter, hand-signed. "Dear Ms. Kingsley, you don't know me. I'm 63. I worked for my son's company for 6 years unpaid, believing I was helping him build. When I got sick, he cut me out of the trust. I was ashamed. I thought it was my fault. Until I heard you. Your voice gave me permission to be angry and to act. Thank you. Lynn G., Denver." Evelyn held the letter in her hands longer than expected, not to admire it, but to remember it. Darren called 3 times that week, twice from his cell, once from a restricted line. Each call went unanswered. He tried leaving a voicemail once, but his voice cracked halfway through. "Mom, I don't even know how we got here. I didn't see it happening. I didn't want it to happen. You have to believe me." Click. The message ended without resolution. Evelyn never listened to the others. It was the 3rd Thursday of the month when the knock came. Not rushed, not hostile, professional. A young woman in a navy blue blazer stood outside Evelyn's door, holding a sealed folder. Her badge read, "Kingsley, Frey, and Morrow, Legal Services. Delivery on behalf of the estate reassignment team," she said. Evelyn accepted the folder without a word. She already knew what it was. Inside, confirmation of final inheritance reassignment, Tasha's name removed from all future holdings, trust restructuring approved, ownership consolidated. There were no appeals left to file, no path back to the money Tasha had once wrapped herself in like silk. The last page bore one simple sentence: "This completes the reallocation of all Kingsley family wealth." Evelyn signed it with a slow, deliberate stroke. As she closed the folder, she received a calendar invite from the Women's Foundation she had quietly supported. The subject line read, "Board Invitation, Evelyn J. Kingsley, Founding Seat Nomination, Pending Acceptance." She flaunted closets full of silk. I left her closets full of air. The jewelry box was heavier than she remembered. Evelyn placed it on her new kitchen island, unclasped the silver latch, and opened the lid. Neat velvet rose shimmered under soft pendant lights. Rings, brooches, pearls. Her wedding bangles, the ones she hadn't sold. A sapphire pin gifted on her 25th anniversary. And the antique garnet set from her grandmother's estate, which Tasha once asked if she could modernize. Evelyn lifted one bracelet, letting the chain dangle between her fingers. It caught the light like memory, beautiful, sharp, and no longer hers. She spent the day packing, not for herself, not for a move, but for a legacy. Every item was photographed, documented, and sealed with care. A gold locket went into a donation box labeled "Reclaim Her Dignity, Fundraiser Auction." The diamond earrings, once saved for Tasha, were wrapped in velvet and delivered to Elder Rise Foundation. The antique mirror, a family heirloom, was hand-carried to the transitional housing shelter she'd helped fund. Not a single item was left behind for Tasha. Not a ring, not a spoon, not even a faded photograph. Only one thing remained. Tucked in a slim envelope, Evelyn slid the original receipt for the $7,000 diamond necklace Tasha had flaunted at dinner into a padded mailer. A copy of the charge, a printed bank statement showing the joint account withdrawal. She placed it in a plain white envelope addressed to Tasha's name. No message, no signature. She sealed it and left it at the front desk with the others. By noon the next day, Evelyn was seated in her lawyer's office. The final version of her will lay between them. Her signature, already inked and witnessed, marked the end of all assumption. Tasha had been written out. Darren's share was frozen behind quarterly audits. The estate now funneled through a newly formed trust with donations pre-assigned to the very foundations that had helped her rebuild. The lawyer reviewed the signatures once more. "It's done," he said. "They have no claim now. Not 1 cent. Evelyn nodded. "Good?" He hesitated, his tone softening. "It's rare, seeing someone take their power back like this." She met his eyes. "It wasn't taken. I gave it away piece by piece. I just finally stopped apologizing for wanting it back." Meanwhile, across town, Darren opened his mailbox. Inside, a thick white envelope. No return address, no explanation. He opened it at the kitchen counter. Silence stretching between him and Tasha like a battlefield after ceasefire. Donation receipts, appraisal reports, photos of every heirloom with their new locations listed beneath them. Tasha leaned over his shoulder, her hands trembling. "What is this?" Darren said nothing. At the bottom of the stack, a slip of thermal paper, jewelry receipt, dated months ago. The purchase Tasha had made from the joint account. Next to it, Evelyn had paperclipped a photocopy of the withdrawal from the now frozen account. Tasha's jaw locked. "There's nothing left," she muttered. Darren exhaled through his nose. "Number nothing for you." Back at the condo, Evelyn brewed a cup of ginger tea. The weather had turned cool again. A wind swept in from the east, rattling the leaves outside her window. She walked to her new walk-in closet. Empty shelves, clean drawers. She'd kept 3 coats, 4 pairs of shoes, 2 silk scarves. Everything else had been given away. Not out of anger, but because she didn't need the weight anymore. The space didn't feel barren. It felt precise, intentional, like a closet made of clarity. Her phone buzzed. One new email, subject, "Advisory Board Invitation confirming your seat." From Cora House Foundation. Body, Ms. Kingsley, we're honored to offer you a founding seat on our advisory board. Your experience, resilience, and advocacy are exactly the voice our women need. Would you accept? Evelyn stared at the screen, steam rising from her mug. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just breathed. She tapped reply. Her fingers hovered for a moment, then typed 2 words before hitting send. "I'm ready." They measured me by perfume and pearls. I showed up with power. The coat wasn't trendy. It wasn't designer. It didn't come with a tag that screamed status or a logo stitched for attention. It was wool, deep slate gray, tailored at the waist, with structured shoulders and a high collar that curved like quiet armor. Evelyn slid her arms into the sleeves as the shopkeeper gently fastened the last button. The silk gloves she'd chosen, ivory, lined and uncreased, fit as though they had been waiting for her. She studied herself in the mirror. No jewelry, no brooch, just presence. A quiet kind of wealth that couldn't be borrowed or bought. She looked finished. Not as in complete, but as in sharpened. The invitation list was short. 12 women, some widows, a few divorcees, one barely out of her 30s, all survivors of financial manipulation, displacement, or quiet erasure. They gathered at Evelyn's condo that Saturday, the large windows open to a spring breeze that carried the scent of jasmine and warm soil. The dining table had been extended to its full length, covered with embroidered linen and a mix of bone china, some passed down, some thrifted. Laughter drifted between the teacups. There was no pity in the room, no small talk about how things used to be, just honest storytelling. "I had to pretend I didn't know how to use Excel," one woman said, pouring more chamomile. "He thought it was cute. He also didn't think I'd find the offshore accounts." Another nodded. "I stayed quiet because I thought the kids needed stability. Turns out they needed a version of me I hadn't met yet." They chuckled, cried a little, ate lemon tarts and mint sandwiches. Evelyn sat at the head of the table, not as a leader, but as a witness. She didn't guide the conversation. She made space for it, and when the laughter slowed and the breeze stilled, she stood with her teacup in hand. "I don't know if any of us woke up one day and though, today I'll stop giving away pieces of myself," but somehow we did. The women nodded quietly. "I was once told that power looks like pearls and perfume," Evelyn continued, "but I've learned it's quieter, firmer. It shows up in court filings and donation slips and the fact that I'm still standing when they counted me out." She raised her cup to dignity, quiet, steady, and reclaimed. The table raised their glasses in unison, to dignity reclaimed. After the guests left, Evelyn stood in the doorway, watching the last one disappear down the hallway. The dishes could wait. She took off her coat, draped it carefully over a chair, and slipped off her gloves with practiced grace. The condo was filled with echoes now, not the kind that haunt, but the kind that hum, like warmth settling into wood floors. She turned on the record player. Nina Simone's voice cracked through the soft air. She poured herself one more cup of tea, sat by the window. Her phone buzzed once, then again. She let it ring. When it stopped, she checked the screen. One new voicemail. Unknown number. She pressed play. Tasha's voice came through, raw, broken in places Evelyn had never heard. "Evelyn, please, I need to talk to you. Everything's gone. Darren won't. I don't know where else to turn. I didn't mean for it to end like this. I thought I could." She stopped, sobbed once, regathered herself. "I don't want anything from you, I swear. I just need to see you. Please just meet me once." The message ended with silence so long, Evelyn thought the phone had shut off. She stared at the screen. The quiet inside her wasn't rage. It wasn't pity. It was wait, memory, stillness. She didn't move. Not yet. The voicemail app blinked. Another message came in, this one from a law firm, not hers, a new name. The message transcript read, "Ms. Kingsley, our client has requested a mediated meeting. Will you hear her out?" She said I smelled old. I smelled of lavender and legacy. The rain tapped gently against the windows like someone knocking politely on the past. Evelyn stood in the center of her living room, the echo of Tasha's voicemail still lingering in the air. Her phone screen dimmed in her hand. She didn't press replay. She didn't pause to consider. She pressed delete. One soft tap, and the weight of a woman's regret disappeared into digital dust. The condo was quiet, but not empty. It smelled faintly of lavender, her lavender. Not the synthetic kind Tasha diffused in humid rooms to cover discomfort. This was linen-washed, steeped in warmth lavender. Clean, lived in, chosen. Evelyn moved slowly to her bedroom, opened the top drawer of the wardrobe, and pulled out a velvet box. It was small, unassuming. The hinges gave a gentle groan when opened, like a secret finally allowed to breathe. Inside, nestled on navy silk, lay her real jewelry. Not costume, not borrowed sparkle, the untouched set from her 20s, gold and sapphire. One ring, 2 earrings, and a pendant with a gem the color of midnight waves. She picked up the pendant and let it rest against her palm. It was heavier than she remembered, or maybe she was just stronger now. She placed the box on the bedside table, walked back into the kitchen and filled the kettle. Steam rose steadily as she waited. She didn't rush. She didn't multitask. The act of making tea had become sacred, her new form of prayer. The rain began to fall harder now, a quiet drumbeat on the glass, as if the sky itself was rinsing off the last of someone else's choices. She poured the tea, jasmine this time, and carried it to her favorite spot, the armchair by the window. The city looked washed and new. The television played in the background, volume low but clear enough to carry the weight of the words. In the wake of a viral podcast episode that sparked national attention, lawmakers are drafting a bill designed to protect elderly co-signers in joint asset accounts. The proposed Kingsley Clause would prevent unauthorized asset usage without dual consent, especially in familial arrangements where power imbalance is prevalent. The screen showed a stock image of a smiling older woman, unidentifiable, but the voiceover echoed Evelyn's cadence, her story retold, reshared, reborn. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply took another sip of tea. The flavor bloomed gently on her tongue. Bitter, fragrant, honest. A knock came at the door. Then silence. She didn't move to answer it. A moment passed. Then the soft sound of footsteps fading down the hallway. She waited another full minute before standing. When she opened the door, a small envelope lay at the threshold. No return address. Just her name. Inside, a letter from the Legal Foundation. Confirmation of her advisory board seat. At the bottom, a handwritten note. "You're not just a survivor. You're a system reset. Welcome home." She folded it neatly and placed it on the entryway table beside her keys. Then she returned to the window. Outside, the rain softened into mist. She reached into the drawer beside her chair and pulled out a small photograph. Black and white. Her wedding day. She and Harold were laughing. He mid-joke, she mid-eye roll. She placed the photo beside her tea. "You'd have liked how it ended," she whispered. And she meant it. Because it wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. It wasn't just about the money. It was about truth and silence undone and a future that no longer needed an apology. Tasha once asked if she'd showered. She had smiled back then, said nothing. Let the insult hang in the air like smoke. Now, Evelyn leaned back in her chair, breathed in the scent of lavender and steeped legacy, and watched the clouds roll past her city. She asked if I'd showered. I cleaned up her future instead.